Hello, welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at A-Level English Language Paper 3, which is all about text analysis, right? And the way that this paper is laid out is we have two questions, and we are to answer both questions, follow the instructions. If you need additional paper, you ask for it, and you are obviously always reminded for the need of good English and clear presentation in your answers. The total marks allocated to this paper is 50, and here it says that the number of marks for each question or part is shown in brackets. Okay. Let's begin with question 1. Question 1. The following text is a transcript of part of a radio podcast. The presenter, Sarah Montag, is investigating computer-based teaching methods. In this extract, she is speaking with a 9-year-old student called Serena, and then with Nolan Bushnell, an educational technology expert. Part A. Imagine that you are one of Serena's parents. As part of an online survey, Serena's teacher asked you to give feedback on Serena's experience of computer-based learning. And in part B, compare the language and style of your online survey response with the language and style of the podcast. Okay, and part A is worth 10 marks. Part B is worth 15 marks. So part B is much more heavy on the marks than part A. Right? So the way that we should do this is I will start by reading the text, and things that you should keep in mind and that I will be keeping in mind while I read is that here in brackets, when we have a number in brackets, it indicates the pause in seconds. So 1 would mean 1 second pause. And then when there's a period in a bracket, it means that there's a micropause. So micropause are just split seconds, just a quick, you stop talking for a quick second. It's not a whole second, a whole pause. Underlining, it means that the sound or the syllable or syllables are being stressed. So some emphasis. And we also have laughter. That's in square brackets. The way that we teach hasn't changed in hundreds of years. A teacher standing in front of a class, it's how we were taught, our parents were taught, and how our children are being taught. But in some schools, that is changing. I'm Sarah Montag, and in this documentary, I'll be looking at the phenomenal changes in education being brought about by technology. In the first program in the series, I'll be asking if this is one of the greatest educational opportunities ever, or the worst nightmare of our children. Music starts. My name is Serena. And what are you doing here? You're logging into your computer? Yes. You've got a little plastic bag. It's like a sandwich bag with your earphones in. What are you working on at the moment? Right now, I'm just looking at a master challenge. So we have a fraction problem here. Quite a difficult one. Yeah. Is that minus 5/9 divided by 6/5? Yes. At home, my brother taught me this. You're 9 years old. Yes. So do you remember what it was like before you had this kind of thing? Before, I was just kind of bored with doing things. Now I'm the highest in my class, basically. Laughs. So ha ha ha. What wouldn't you like about it? Seriously, you love it. Yes. Music stops. I've come to Silicon Valley, home to some of the world's biggest technology companies. It's here that a radical rethink is going on into what it means to go to school. They're asking profound questions about the way children learn, what the classroom of the future should look like, and whether traditional teaching methods have outlived their usefulness. I believe that we can make education addictive. In this brave new world, school has to compete for the engagement of the mind, and a teacher with a piece of chalk can't compete. By the way, now we're at this was Nolan that just said this. Now Sarah again. What I'm curious about is where we're going with it, what the technology will allow us to do. Nolan, well, I think the technology will allow us to create a world of engagement over the next several years. Not just us, but others are going to be moving much more aggressively to one-to-one computing, one-to-one tablets. Do we really want kids to carry around 5-6 textbooks, many of which haven't been changed in 5 years or 6 years, versus this kind of learning experience? And that's all that we have for the transcript. Forgive me for not really respecting all of these little details and pauses there. But if you read the script, I think you get a general idea of how it would sound when people speak. Okay, so we just read the script. We have the first part. The first thing is the introduction, and then you have the music starting, which takes us to the first segment. So first segment is between Sarah and Serena. So Sarah is interviewing Serena, it seems like, that is currently using a computer to do some work. And then the second part we have when the music stops. So the music stops, and then we go into the second segment, which is Sarah discussing with Nolan, the educational technology expert. Okay, and we see here that Nolan's part, the part with that includes Nolan, is actually pretty shorter than the part here with Serena. The first task in this question, so part A, is asking you to pretend that you are one of Serena's parents, okay? And you're participating in an online survey that Serena's teacher has created, and the survey is asking for feedback on Serena's experience of computer-based learning. Okay, so feedback, important. Feedback usually includes positive and negative. So what's positive and what's negative about Serena's experience with computer-based learning? And your answer should be between 120 to 150 words. So let's take a look at what I have here for you. Okay. So as always, I write down important things at first, so to remind you what you must remember for this question, which is you're the parent, you're giving feedback, and that's basically it, all right? So let's focus on the ideas here that I have for you. let's begin with the positive ideas regarding computer-based learning, okay? So if you're a child, if you pretend that you have a child and your child is learning with computers, what are positive things? So a first positive thing is that the child, in this case Serena, is exposed to technologies that people use in modern workplaces, okay? And here you can argue that, for example, Serena, in the transcript here, she was doing math. She was doing math on the computer, okay? So maybe she's using a specific software. We don't know, but she's exposed to technology that people would be using in workplaces. So that's a plus. That's very good. Because a lot of companies use very sophisticated and advanced softwares that are usually related to statistics, math, finances, accounting softwares, all of that. So if at school you get to do that on a computer and use those same similar softwares, that's great for a kid getting ready for the future, right? Second point that I have written down is her learning environment is broadened because Serena now has access to the internet. So the internet is just massive, right? If you have to think about probably 60 years ago, when our grandparents or our parents had to go to libraries to get their books, and they were studying, everything was from a book. And now if you have a question, you just Google it, or you can use the internet to find different things, explore different things, different cultures. So the learning field is massive, because back in the day they only had a book and they just had one or two books. And yeah, now you have everything from around the world. Third point, she's more interested, excited to learn. So you could argue that, because since it's technology, kids are more fascinated, because a lot of kids find, a book is boring. You can't do much with a book. A book doesn't make sound. It doesn't change color if you wanted to. You can't really personalize a book that much. But with a computer, you can add an image on the background. You can do a lot of things with computers, right? And personalize it to your liking. So you can give the positive feedback that with everything that she can do with the computer, and think of concrete examples, she's more interested and excited to learn. Another huge positive for computer-based learning is that it's actually easier to track and analyze a person's progress, right? In this case, Serena's progress, because now with the click of a button, you can see all of her grades. You can also, maybe there's functions that allow you to get the average of all of her homework. And also maybe there's a report or a report feature that allows the parent to see which question is related to which topic, and therefore which topic is she stronger with or weaker with. So you can definitely track and analyze the progress, much easier than paper. If you have to take all of your kids' paper homework and you have to look and compare, do that all by yourself manually, it's harder and also takes more time. When you could just click a print report button and get all the information easily. Okay. Negative, I have a few things here. So I have three major things. We have eye strain, because looking at a computer for a long period of time, it might actually hurt your eyes after a while. So you can argue that you had to take her to the eye doctor and she might need glasses now, because looking at the computer has just really put a huge strain on her eyes. Okay. second point that is negative is that she's less interested in human-to-human interaction. Okay, so now that Serena is doing all of her work on a computer, she's interacting with a computer. So when she needs help, she doesn't, maybe she likes to text or send a message through the computer to a classmate or to her teacher. She doesn't like to be bothered by humans anymore. And I think that in this text, we'll look at that later, but you see it in the transcript. She says, yeah, she's focused on her computer. The way that she speaks, you can tell that she's pretty busy, right? Does not want to be bothered. Okay, and oops, stabilize this. Okay, third point is that Serena now, if she has technical issues, that's pretty bad. Because when you have a book, you can just carry your book in your car. If you're going to a family, friends, and you need to study, you can easily take your book, put it in your pocket, and go. Okay? But with a computer, it depends. If you have a laptop, yes, or a tablet, it's easy to take around. But if it's a huge desktop computer, then you can't really take an entire desktop and travel with it, right? It's cumbersome. Word of the day. Cumbersome. So it could be very hard to do that. And as well, technical issues in the sense that if let's say you lose your charger, your laptop charger, and your laptop dies, then there you go, can't use it. But if you had a book, that doesn't matter, right? Because books don't need batteries, so you can always use them with ease. Okay? So these are the points that I have for you that will help you write the feedback. Okay? Now let's move on to part B. So part B is asking you to compare the language and style of your online survey response with the language and style of the podcast. Okay, so remember you have language and style that you're using in the part A versus language and style that you notice in the podcast here. Seconds, just gonna put up the lines here. Okay. Okay. So I did not actually write the feedback in great detail. So here for part B, we'll just focus on the language and the style of the podcast itself, okay? So as usual, I'll have notes about the language underlined in red and notes about the style underlined in blue. And let's go ahead and look through all of that. So first thing that I noticed here with language is that there's a figure of speech. We have worst nightmare, okay? So that's it's an exaggeration, right? Hyperbole, because we have the presenter, Sarah, who is saying, in the first program, I'll be asking if this is one of the greatest educational opportunities ever or the worst nightmare for our children. Okay, worst nightmare regarding using a computer to learn, okay? That's definitely an exaggeration, so hyperbole. And also, second thing I noticed that I pointed out specifically here, but that you could see throughout the entire transcript, is there's no capitalization, no punctuation. For example, this is a sentence, but there's no period at the end. The first letter is not capitalized there. Here as well, you see it, no capitalization. When questions are being asked, and what are you doing? You're logging into your computer. There's no question mark here. there's a lot of things that I noticed regarding the grammar, and this is normal for a transcript. It basically aligns with the idea of this being a transcript, because transcripts are usually plain text. They're not formatted in the sense that they don't really follow the grammar. It's just a computer that is, you can tell that the transcript was automatically generated. So it was probably not typed by someone. It was automatically generated. So this transcript most likely comes from a software that listens to audio. So it listened to the video and it just output. So input is the audio and then output is just a plain text, which is the transcript. Okay. And third thing that I noticed is both language and style. You could argue both language and style here. Yes, yeah, yes, yes. So it's about Serena saying yes. Just yes, right? And here, language, so that would be repetition. So she just repeats yes, yeah, a lot. Difference between yes and yeah is it means the same thing, which is just agreement, but it's just a pronunciation that's different. So here it's yes, right? And here it's yeah. Okay, but I put them in the same basket because they mean the same thing. So it's a repetition, and what effect does that give, right? It gives the effect that Serena is not really interested. She doesn't say much, right? She just agrees. You ask her a question, it's yes or no, or it's very, she's very short with her response, okay? Which can show that, so since she doesn't elaborate, it sort of shows disinterest, right? She's not very interested because she doesn't elaborate. Okay? Just like if you're texting someone and you say, hey, how are you? And the person doesn't really want to talk to you, they'll probably say, I'm good. But if they really wanted to talk to you and they were interested by the conversation, they say, hi, I'm good. I just did this today. It was fun. How are you? Are you good? They elaborate more. They say more. Okay? And here, I guess we'll look at tone later. We also have some rhetorical questions that I've noticed. Serena came in with the first one when she says, what wouldn't you like about it? There should be a question mark here. It's a rhetorical question, so figure of speech. And we also have a second rhetorical question here, from Nolan, when he says, do we really want kids to carry around 5, 6 textbooks, many of which haven't been changed in 5 years or 6 years, versus the kind of learning experience, versus this kind of learning experience? So 2 rhetorical questions that I've spotted. And here I think that in your feedback, you might not use rhetorical questions. So that's probably a difference. Okay, well, it's up to you. You could actually choose to use one or not. Okay. Language. I also saw personification, another figure of speech, from Sarah when she says, what the classroom of the future should look like and whether traditional teaching methods have outlived their usefulness. Okay, so teaching methods have outlived. That's a human-like characteristic that you're linking to a non-human thing. So a teaching method is not a human, so it doesn't really live. Okay, so personification there. We also have ethos, right, for our rhetorics. And sorry, I'm trying to just straighten this here. It's bothering me so much. It's not straight. Okay, I think this is pretty straight. Okay, so yes, we have ethos. Okay, because here's Sarah when she's introducing Nolan. She says, I've come to Silicon Valley, home of some of the world's biggest technology companies. Okay, so right before you talk to the educational technology expert, you have Sarah that is saying that here I am in an area somewhere, so in a place where there's a lot of large technology companies that are known worldwide, right? I think there's also personification here. Home to some of the biggest technology companies. So a home, this, you can argue this to be a personification too. Okay, but yes, main point is ethos. So what effect does saying this have? It says that as soon as she says that, then the audience, you're like, okay, so this is a very serious place. You know, it's here that radical rethinking is going on. So the people here are not joking around. They know what they're doing. They're experts. So when Nolan starts to speak and he's giving his opinion, you'll probably believe him because you know that he comes from Silicon Valley, which is huge, right? It's a very known place and very prestigious. So you won't really question whatever Nolan says. So there's use of ethos there. Okay. And another thing I did not highlight, but in terms of style, here you can mention when the music starts and music stops. And music stops. So that is related to how the transcript is organized. So you know that the first segment is starting when the music starts, and then the first segment is done when the music stops. So it separates the two parts. Okay, that's how you know. And here in the beginning, that's what Sarah mentioned. She says it's a documentary, and the first program, she talked about two programs. So when the music starts, the first one begins, and when it ends, the first program ends as well. Okay. Now, what I wanted to mention about style as well is the tone. So the tone, you have Serena, she's distracted and absent, right? We talked about that because Serena says, yes, yes, yes. She's not very engaged. And here as well, you can, it reinforces the tone, when she says, and then she takes a lot of micro pauses too. She's doing something. She's on the computer, so she's not really paying attention to whatever Sarah is saying, which is why she's saying yes and keeping things very short, because her attention is not fully on Sarah, it's rather on what she's doing on the computer. As far as Sarah's tone, so yes, we have three different tones. Sarah's tone is very curious because she's asking questions. You don't have question marks, but by just reading the text, you can tell that Sarah's asking the questions. She's asking questions to Serena, and she's also asking questions to Nolan. And here she actually states it explicitly. What I'm curious about is where we're going with it, okay? She's curious. That's her tone. Nolan, we have confidence. And what makes me say so is he uses words like I believe that we can make education addictive, okay? And he also says, well, I think the technology will allow us. So he's very assertive with the way that he speaks. He speaks clearly, and yes, he speaks clearly. He takes micro pauses. He doesn't take long pauses when he speaks. Oops. Okay, so I get confidence from him. So that would be Nolan's tone. Confident, and you could also say informative. Okay, so that's what I have for you for question 1. And don't forget for part B to compare the language and style to the one from your answer in part A. Okay. Now let's move on to our second question for this paper. Question 2. It reads, text A and B are both related to glass. Text A is a description of how glass is made. It is from a website called Explain That Stuff. Text B is a biography of Jack Storms, an artist who sculpts glass. It is taken from Jack Storm's website. Compare the language and style of text A and text B. Okay, let's begin by reading text A. Glass. Now you see it, now you don't. Glass is a bit of a riddle. It's hard enough to protect us, but it shatters with incredible ease. It's made from opaque sand, yet it's completely transparent. And perhaps most surprisingly of all, it behaves like a solid material, but it's also a sort of weird liquid in disguise. You can find glass wherever you look. Most rooms in your home will have a glass window, and if not that, perhaps a glass mirror or a glass light bulb. Glass is one of the world's oldest and most versatile human-created materials. Let's find out some more about it. What is glass? Believe it or not, glass is made from liquid sand. You can make glass by heating ordinary sand until it melts and turns into a liquid. You won't find that happening on your local beach. Sand melts at an incredibly high temperature of 1,700 degrees Celsius, translates to 3,090 degrees Fahrenheit. When molten sand cools, it doesn't turn back into the gritty yellow stuff you started out with. It undergoes a complete transformation and gains an entirely different inner structure. Glass is such a popular material in our homes because it has all kinds of really useful properties. Apart from being transparent, it's inexpensive to make, easy to shape when it's molten, reasonably resistant to heat when it's set, chemically inert, so a glass jar doesn't react with the things you put inside it, and it can be recycled any number of times. How is glass made? In a commercial glass plant, sand is mixed with waste glass from recycling collections, soda ash, sodium carbonate, and limestone, calcium carbonate, and heated in a furnace. The soda reduces the sand's melting point, which helps to save energy during manufacture. But it has an unfortunate drawback. it produces a kind of glass that would dissolve in water. The limestone is added to stop that happening. The end product is called soda lime silica glass. It's the ordinary glass we can see all around us. Once the sand is melted, it is either poured into molds to make bottles, glasses, and other containers, or poured on top of a big vat of molten tin metal to make perfectly flat sheets of glass for windows. Unusual glass containers are still sometimes made by blowing them. A lump of molten glass is wrapped around in an open pipe which is slowly rotated. Air is blown through the pipe's open end, causing the glass to blow up like a balloon. With skillful blowing and turning, all kinds of amazing shapes can be made. Okay, so this is the first text, so text A about glass. And since we are trying to compare the language and the style of text A and text B, I think that the best way to approach it is to read text B as well. And then, no, actually, you know what? Let's actually go through. Let's go through this first so that we don't forget, and then we'll read text B and then go through the language and style of text B, and then we'll compare both quickly. Okay, let's do that. So first thing that I noticed here is how the text is organized. So we have subheadings, right? Glass, what is glass? How glass is made. So we have subheadings, that's the structure of the text overall, so that the information is organized. Okay, so a reader can quickly know. If you just want to know about how glass is made, you can skip to this part here. If you want to know what glass is, you can go right to the middle. So you have the subheadings guiding you. Okay, so the first thing that I noticed about language is we have a polysyndeton. And what that is when you use conjunctions repeatedly, okay, and strategically. And in the conjunction that we have here is the use of but. Okay, so I'm going to read this and just notice how the sentences are structured with one statement, but, and then an opposing statement. Okay, so it's hard enough to protect us, but it shatters with incredible ease. It's made from opaque sand, yet it's completely transparent. And perhaps most surprisingly of all, it behaves like a solid material, but it's also a sort of weird liquid in disguise. So we have but, yet, but, and, okay? So just a lot of conjunctions that are used repeatedly. Okay, and here I underlined the exclamation mark in blue because there's a few use of exclamation marks in here. There's another one that I underlined later on here in blue as well. And it plays into the style because it shows the tone, right? It's very upbeat and it's exciting, and so whoever is the author is very excited about the information that they're giving out. They're very enthusiastic about this, the way that they speak. Okay, and here, as far as style, believe it or not, and when molten sand cools, it doesn't turn back into the gritty yellow stuff you started out with. So saying the yellow stuff and believe it or not, it's very informal, right? It's informal and it's conversational. So the writer, the author, is the way that they're speaking to the reader, it's in a very, very laid back, as if you're just talking to a friend. And moving on. Apart from being transparent, it's inexpensive to make, easy to shape when it's molten, reasonably resistant to heat when it's set, chemically inert, so a glass jar doesn't react with the things you put inside it, and it can be recycled any number of times. Here we have an enumeration. Okay, just listing things, listing a bunch of things that characterize glass. Okay, and then for style, another important thing is you see the use of parentheses, right? For passing comments that the writer is making. So here you see the author, so the writer, uses parentheses a lot to make comments. So for example, here, sand is mixed with waste glass from recycling collections. Soda ash, sodium carbonate, or floated, poured on top of a big vat of molten tin metal. Okay, so the author is adding on to whatever he's saying by using parentheses. Okay, making passing comments. So that's the style, that's how the writer communicates. Just adds on stuff with the use of these round brackets. Okay, and here below I also wrote extra things that you can point out as far as language and style. So the grammatical person, we have second person that the writer uses, so you, right? In the text, you can make glass, you won't find that happening. So here we hear you quite often, you. Also we have first person, we, through the use of we. Example, let's see if I can find that, if I can remember. Yes, here. It's the ordinary glass that we can see all around us. Okay, so the use of we, and a lot of third person, which I believe is actually the dominant one. Third person, I believe, because here it says it. There's a lot of it is, it's, it, because at the end of the day, the main focus of the text is glass, right? So it, glass, about it, it's made. Okay? So I would say that's the dominating grammatical person, third person. The sentences, they're long plus medium. There's a few long sentences here, notably this one here. It's various 3 lines. Long sentence. This one again is long. Then we have a medium one here. Okay, so this text makes use of long and medium sentences. The tone is informative and enthusiastic. Okay, informative and enthusiastic. Okay, so these are the notes about text A. Keep that in mind while we read text B. Text B, remember text B is the biography of Jack Storms, an artist who sculpts glass, and it was taken from his website. Okay. First subheading, beginnings. If you would have asked a 12-year-old Jack Storms what he wanted to do with his life, he'd have paused, then blurted a vague answer, something akin to, I don't know, art. He'd always be good at it. The passion was there too, an excess of it even. The more he learned about art, the more he realized just how much he wanted to make a name for himself in the field, a field that's been explored to the point of exhaustion throughout history. What Jack Storms didn't know then was that he'd discovered something that would push back the frontiers of contemporary art in a significant way. Experimentation. During his junior year at Plymouth State University, Jack snagged a job working for a glass artist who'd been experimenting with a technique that captured Jack's imagination, combining lead crystal and dichroic glass using a cold glass process. There was a moment of revelation. I'll take that again. There was a moment of revelation. Fascinated by its potential, Fascinated by its potential, Jack spent a year learning the ropes of the technique. But to Jack, there was always more aspects to dig into, more ideas to sift through, more designs to test out, and call his own. Perfecting his art. After mustering the gumption to open his own studio in 2004, Jack delved deeper into the process, spending hours upon hours perfecting his creations and even inventing a cold working lathe. It became immediately obvious to Jack that producing work which is effortlessly perfect would require an overwhelming amount of effort. And it all starts at the core. Working with blocks of lead crystal, he cuts them several times, grinding and polishing each slice. Then, with the precision of a surgeon, he inserts dichroic glass between them at every stage, pausing to glue and cure them before repeating the process. The end result? Glass sculptures shaped like cube eggs, and even champagne glasses and wine bottles that flaunt a chaotic display of color pieces that not only passively draw attention but demand it with urgency. It took several years of guesswork, a boatload of tenacity, and a viral video or two, but fast forward 13 years and Jack's business is running full swing. Looking closely at any of his pieces, especially when the color within emerged to hit the daylight and furiously sparkle, there's ample evidence that Jack successfully turned an amorphous vision into a clear-cut reality. Oh, okay. So here, while we were reading, I also noticed a few other things that I would like to underline that I did not underline while I was reading first time. We have a personification. Here too. I can probably write it here. Okay, so let's take a look at language and style for text B. So I guess while we take a look, we can also simultaneously compare it to text A, right? First thing that I noticed is subheadings. So in text B, just like in text A, we have the subheadings. So it's the same style. Okay, and there's the same style, but used in a different way. So here the subject of the subheadings is Jack Storms. So it's talking about Jack Storms, but the other text is talking about glass specifically, okay? So that's the difference, but also it's a similarity. They both use subheadings. Another thing that is similar yet different that I noticed is we have the same style that is used for passing comments, right? So you have passing comments here. But the only difference from text A and text B is that text A uses some parentheses for the passing comments. Okay, so the round brackets when the writer wants to make a passing comment. But in text B, we have hyphens or dashes, okay? Not hyphens, it's dashes. The use of dashes, okay? And so that's another similarity. So both texts, the style is making passing comments, but one of them uses round brackets, the other one dashes. Okay, and next thing that we can point out, we have personifications, figure of speech, right? Pieces that not only passively draw attention but demand it with urgency. Okay, so this is a human quality, characteristic, being demanding. But pieces of glass are not human. Okay, so it's non-human. We have a personification there. We also have personification when the writer says a technique that captured Jack's imagination. So a technique is a non-human thing. Okay, but we're attributing a human-like personality or characteristic to a non-human thing. Personification again. And here in text A, I don't believe that I saw personification. Okay, maybe there may be one, I'm not too sure, but I did not. If you let me know down in the comments if you actually spotted a personification. But if there's no personification, that would be something you could argue, you could compare the difference. You could point out that text B uses quite a bit of personification when seems like there isn't any in text A. Okay, and we also have another figure of speech. We have anaphora, because it's the repetition at the beginning, same repetition, more, more, more. Okay, more aspects, more ideas, more designs. So each part starts with more, more, same word. Okay, it's repeated, so that's an anaphora. We also have a metaphor, another figure of speech. Then with the precision of a surgeon. Okay, so here Jack Storms is being compared to a surgeon without the use of like or as, which makes it a metaphor. It's a comparison there. Okay, and more personification here. So we have 3 personifications. Jack's business is running full swing. It's running, okay? So that's personification, because a business cannot run. Okay, it literally, in the literal sense, it cannot run. Okay, So we have that. Here, there's ample evidence that Jack successfully turned an amorphous vision into a clear-cut reality. So when I read this, I was like, wow, it's pretty formal, right? So the tone here, the tone is informative, intense, and also formal. And I'll explain why. Informative, because it is a biography. So we're being given information, just like in text A. Text A is about glass. We're receiving information about glass, right? Here we're receiving information about Jack Storms. So that's why I say informative for both. They have both of those, and those tones are the same. Okay. Text B, I also sense some intensity in the tone. Why do I sense the intensity? Specifically in this part here, perfecting his art. In this paragraph, I feel like there's a lot of intense things going on. If we read again, here it says, Jack delved deeper into the process, spending hours upon hours perfecting his creations and even inventing a cold working lad. It became immediately obvious, okay, to Jack that blah, 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 blah. It would require an overwhelming amount of effort. And it all starts at the core, working blocks of lead crystal. He cuts them several times, grinding and polishing each slice. Okay, so I get that it's intense work that it took to get him to where he is, which is why I say that the tone is pretty intense there. Okay, and you can, to back up your statement, you can use this here, hours upon hours. Okay, overwhelming amount of effort. He cuts them several times, grinding and polishing. Okay, so all these little I'm trying to find the word, extracts here, there you go. It plays into the intensity. Formal, the reason why I say formal, the text is pretty formal and sophisticated compared to the first one because it's less conversational, okay? Because here we had, okay, the yellow stuff, and believe it or not, the language here is very easy to understand, okay? If you look through the text, there's probably not many super sophisticated or hard to understand words, right? Here it's a little, you could argue these words here, it's more technical talk, right? So it's technical. There's a lot of technical terms in text A. Text B, they're not really technical terms that we see, but just a rich vocabulary. So saying amorphous, right? That's not a word that you use in your day-to-day conversation. Okay, and if we can look at another pretty complicated word that I spotted, he snagged a job, we could just say he got a job. So snagged. Mustering the gumption. Okay, this also is pretty, I don't use this in day-to-day conversation. He delved. Okay, could have said he dived deeper into. So it's a different kind of level of vocabulary that is used. Here we have more sophisticated, right? But in the text A, it's more technical terms. related to chemistry or whatnot. Okay. Additional notes that I have here, we talked about the tone. Okay, you could compare the tone, similarities and differences in tone that I've mentioned, and also for grammatical, person. Here I've noticed second person was used, so you, just once. If you would have asked 12-year-old Jack Storms, okay? So there's that there, you, and then after it's third person. Sorry, which is not we. Third person is he. First person would be we. So third person, we have he, okay? A lot of it and he. We're talking about Jack Storms. So differences in grammatical people. Here on top we have, this is text A. So text A made use of first, second, third. But then text B only uses second and third. Okay. So one more time, if I have to sum up everything. So all this, what they have in common, remember what they both have in common. So here, that what's shaking right now is text A. So text A, we have passing comments. B, we have passing comments as well. So that's similar, but remember, we use different kinds of way to represent the passing comments. Text B uses dashes, while text A uses parentheses. Okay, second thing that they have that's similar are the subheadings. Text A, subheadings. Text B, subheadings. Okay, and then figures of speech are different. Text B uses a lot of personification, but we weren't able to spot, or I personally was not able to spot personification in text A. Differences, again, we have the tone. So similarity in the tone is both informative text. Text A is much more friendly and conversational, informal. Text B is more formal. Okay, and we could, if you want to take it further, a reason why you have the difference in tone is if you just look at even up here, right, when we're reading the question, it lets us know that text B is a biography from Jack Storm's website. Okay, while text A is it's a description of how glass is made from a website called Explain That Stuff. So this is Jack Storm's website. So his website wants to showcase him in the best light possible. So it wants to be very formal and it's professional, right? It's professional. So of course it has to be written in a professional way. While text A is an educative site. So it's trying to get people to want to go and learn stuff. So of course it has to be more fun for people to be attracted to it. Okay, so they have different purposes. And they play it, it is demonstrated in the tone. Okay? And another thing that we could summarize, yes, just grammatical person, right? Again, text B only uses second and third. Text A, we have first, second, third. Sentences, you could also mention that. Text A, we have long plus medium. Text B, we have long, medium as well. But in text B, you can also note that there are more short sentences in text B than there are short ones. in text A. So here is an example, and it all starts at the core. That's one short one. Another short sentence. I saw another one, which is, try to find it. There was a moment of revelation. Again, short. So here you could probably spot a few short sentences, but there aren't many over here in text A. All right, so I hope that this helps you. I didn't write things very in a clean way. You know, I just made notes on the text, but I hope that you understand and that my explanation made sense. But that is what I have for you for question 2. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section and we'll talk about that. But that's what I have for now, okay? And that brings us to the end of this video, taking a look at A-level English Language Paper 3, Text Analysis, Variant 3.1. Okay, thank you for making it to the end of this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if it helped you at all. And yes, I read all the comments, so again, or leave a comment down below if there's anything that you want me to know, improve. I take that into account. Okay, but I thank you for making it to the end of the video again, and I will see you in the next one.